Hello everyone, I'm Katie Moritz, and this is a little bit different kind of video for me, but I just downloaded this app for my iPhone last night, and I think it's really cool. I think it can be really useful for me and any other people who play the hammered dulcimer or any instrument for that matter. So most of my videos are about hammered dulcimers, so I'm going to kind of be talking about this more as it relates to that instrument. So here's what the little icon looks like, and it's called Cheeky Fingers piano chords. Cheeky Fingers piano chords. I'll link that in the video description. But the app itself is $2.99. I'm not getting paid for this, so don't worry about that. But the app's $2.99. I got it for free from the Starbucks free app of the day or whatever that is. And I normally would probably have never paid $2.99 for this app, only because I just don't pay money for apps unless it comes highly recommended by somebody else. Now that I've used the app, I definitely think it's worth it. I would totally, buy this for $2.99 knowing what I know now. So let's go ahead and open it up. And it starts you out in the key of C major. So the first thing you can do is listen to what all these different C chords sound like. When I said it starts out in the key of C major, that was a lie. It just starts out in C. It's very ambiguous. You don't know. So any of these are C chords. Gives you an idea of what those chords sound like, so that's kind of a cool thing. Now, you can do this in any note, so you've got a root of D, D major, minor. You can hear what those different kinds of chords sound like. So the first thing that I did after I figured this out, I went into the settings, and there's all sorts of settings. So first thing you can do, you can set what you want it to be. So I've got light skin fingers, dark skin fingers, little red dots, which I definitely see the appeal of, but for whatever reason, I kind of like the fingers. So I'm going to stick with that. You can change the sound. So I'm going to stick with the piano for right now. You can also change the octave. It starts out high, but you can go low. I'll leave it high for right now. And then this is cool. So arpeggio, you can turn on and off arpeggio mode. You can also do that in the upper right-hand corner here. And you don't have to go into settings to do this. So anywhere in the app, you can just go back and forth. I like the arpeggio mode. I'm going to leave it on so you can hear what I'm playing later. But notation. This is cool. It starts out without notation on. I turned it on. I kind of like the staff. Gives you an idea what those notes look like on a staff. If you're not a note reader, you might want to get rid of that. But if you want to learn how to read notes, that's a really interesting way to do it. You play your chords and then you can see what they look like on a staff. So I like that. Chord numbers. I'm leaving that on. I'll show you later. Key names. Sorry, I skipped over key names. Key names, if you turn this off, they go away. If you turn it on, they're super small. If you don't have great eyesight, they are pretty small, but they are right there above the keys on the piano. So those are just your note names. Again, chord numbers I'll talk about later. Playback speed. This is cool. So in arpeggio mode, you could slow that arpeggio down. Here's a middle pace. That's the quicker one. And then the looping progressions, we'll talk about that later. So, if you're trying to learn the difference between chords, this is great. You can say, okay, here's a D major, and if I have it set to arpeggio, I can hear each note individually. You can hear the difference. It's that dropped third. And you can see what it is. So if you're playing a D major chord, how do you turn it into a D minor chord? You take that third, which is an F sharp, it's that middle one, it's notated up there as an F sharp, and you lower that, and it becomes an F natural. So all you have to do is find the F natural and play the same chord except with an F natural. So that's cool. Raising up that fifth, that minor third with the dropped fifth there. So that's really, really neat. You can hear individually what these chords sound like, and then you can hear what they sound like all at once. In any key, obviously. Now, if you go to this related, so we were in variations, now I touched related. Now, let's go back to the key of C major. It'll make more sense there. Each one of these little chords has a number beneath it. That was this setting here, chord numbers. I have it turned on. That's my 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord, 4 chord. And you can see your 1 chord's major, minor 2, minor 3, major 4, major 5, minor 6. And then once you get into some of these other chords, these first 7 are diatonic to your key. The next few are also diatonic. They're just your major 7, your dominant 7, your minor 7s, and then your diminished 7s. And then they have some other chords that are, you know, what is this chord? Why is D7 related to C? In what way does that work? Well, it tells you it's the 5 of 5, or 5, 7 of 5. Here's your 5, 7 of 4. So these are all secondary dominants. It's really neat. So I like that. Next thing you can do, and obviously, once again, you could do that in any key. So if we're working in D major, here's D major, E minor, F sharp minor, G, A, B minor, C sharp diminished. You could go through like that. Really good at quizzing yourselves for chord progressions and what your diatonic chords are. The next one is progressions. So you've got variations, related chords, and progressions. It starts out here, which is, I'll put it in the key of C. Doesn't really matter though. Your first chord is popular chord progression, and this is where that looping comes into play. I turned it on, so this is just going to continue to loop. So we can hear this chord progression over and over again, which we already do because this chord progression is in so many tunes. We can move on to canon. Gee, I wonder what that one might sound like. Oh, there we go. That sounds familiar. Sounds even more familiar in the right key, though. So this is just me playing around with these things. But anyways, you can go through and find all kinds of chord progressions, and the name of the chord progression gives you a little bit of an indication of what that chord progression is going to sound like. So that's the first thing. I think it's really useful. You can, if you're arranging music or you're composing music, you can also come in here, and there aren't too many options, but loop progressions, you have 3 different speeds. So if you want it to be a little bit slower, you can change that to a slower speed. Oh, apparently didn't take. Sorry. Wrong one. There we go. Now it's slow. Now it's slow. So this could be very useful in just playing around with improvising over chord progressions. Pretty cool. So again, you can turn on the arpeggios. It's pretty slow right now, but that's all right. So now the last thing that we can do, and then I'll talk about some of the things that I don't care for, is we can go into My Progressions and we can start our own progression. So I'm set right now apparently in the key of D. So I'm gonna do a B minor 7, I'll do a G major 7, I'll do a D major 7, and just an A7. And I think there's already a chord similar to this in the popular chords, but now we can listen to it. And it'll give you an idea, at least, of whether or not you like the way a chord progression sounds, you know? I mean, that's very helpful. Rather than going to your instrument and hunting and pecking for chords, you can decide beforehand if you like the chord, if it works in the context of the music that you're playing, and then you can hunt and peck for the chord and figure out what it actually is supposed to be. And you won't have to hunt and peck too much because it actually gives you the notation and you know what the notes are. If you know the notes on your instrument, you should be able to play any of these chords. So that's the first thing. If you need to delete something, just swipe over. This was the one thing that I was having a really hard time figuring out. I couldn't figure out how to delete something because I created a really ugly chord progression. But you just swipe over and you can hit that little X. So this chord progression, I'm going to speed it up just so it doesn't take forever. Here's the problem I don't like about this. Anything that has a 7 next to it, any chord that has a 7, is going to have 4 notes in it, right? Anything that doesn't have a 7 is just a regular triad, and then we've got these chords that have 7 notes. Well, in arpeggio mode, I'll turn it on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's weird. I don't like that very much. So if you are trying to get around that, then you would just switch into arpeggio mode so that it keeps a constant meter, because it won't otherwise. And if in arpeggio mode, the 7 chords all have 4 beats, and the regular triads only have 3 beats, and so it screws up the timing. Now, if you wanted to write a piece of music, for example, that had a meter in 7, then this would be really, really useful. But if you're trying to write a piece of music that really doesn't have a meter in, some kind of mixed meter like that, you probably would want it to maintain the same meter going through the arpeggios without having to switch it to chord mode. So that's the only complaint that I have. Other than that, I think it's a really cool app. I'm going to play with this a lot, and I think I'll find it very useful. So I hope that you do too if you ever download it.